Tour Guides. I'm Carrie.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Bree.
Today we're taking you on a tour of Budapest. I was actually in Budapest back in 2018 on a river cruise, and I'll talk about that a little bit more whenever we get into the beverage section, because I went on a really cool wine tasting there that I'll get to talk about a little bit.
I've actually not been to Hungary. So I've been to 26 countries, haven't made it there yet. It's my grandma's favorite place to visit, though, and she's traveled all over the world, and she really loves Budapest. So, hey, Nana, shout out. She brought me back alcohol when she went, so thanks, Nana.
I don't even go here. I've never been there.
Okay, so for the drink, I really wanted to cover Unicum, which is made by Zwak, which is based in Budapest. It's a Hungarian liqueur as an aperitif or a digestif. Unicum is the...
Sorry. I forgot I read that earlier and it made me laugh.
Yes, U-N-I-C-U-M.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's the Hungarian national liqueur, similar to Germany's Jägermeister or Italy's Fernet Branca. Unfortunately, I could not find it literally anywhere in the U.S. So I moved on to Hungarian wine. I'm honestly really surprised I didn't come to this first because I went on that Hungarian wine tasting tour.
It's okay. You probably drank a lot of wine. You were confused.
Oh, we drank a lot of wine. So on this little excursion, we went to a couple of different wineries near Budapest. The first was more commercial feeling, but it was still small and it very much like a boutique winery close to us. There's actually one in the North Texas Wine Trail called 4R. That's really similar.
Oh, yeah. I get emails from them.
Me too.
Because apparently I bought wine from them at some point, and now they send me emails.
Did we take you?
Farmer's Market, maybe?
That's Firelight.
Oh. Well, I get
wonder-
emails from 4R too.
Maybe it's, this may be too far away. Remember when we bought wine from the Frisco Fresh Market?
Oh, maybe it was there.
I bought that ghost pepper pear wine. That was good. It was
Yeah.
so weird, but it was so good.
But yeah, so the first one had that sort of feel, a little bit more commercial, stainless steel, everything, everywhere.
Uh-huh.
But it was still really cool to go. And we learned a lot more about the process of making their wines, especially because they oak in Hungarian oak rather than American or French, which is something that's very unique to Hungary.
Sure.
The second one we went to is small and family owned, and it was the epitome of family owned. They had 7 children, and children numbers 2, 4, and 7 were serving us. We didn't get their names just because we didn't, but we were told that 2, 4, and 7 were the children serving us. Child 7 was an adorable little girl, probably 8 or 9.
What an icon!
Holy.
She is an icon.
It was amazing, and we'll need to post pictures on the blog because
Yeah, I was going to say.
I have some pictures, and they did little food pairings with it, and it was amazing.
Aw.
They also had my favorite wine of the day there, and it may just be simply for the name, but our tour group also bought 2 bottles to share on the way back, and that's a whole other story. It was this rickety old 14-person bus.
Nice.
We got turned. Anyway, the name of this wine was the Curvy Redhead,
Yeah.
which,
Aw.
as a curvy redhead, I approve. So, some background on Hungarian wine. Back in the
17 Hungaries. In Hungary.
Yes, the 17 Hungaries. No, back in the 1700s, Hungary was a leader in fine wines, specifically sweet wines, which are in high demand due to the cool Hungarian climate, which is ideal for growing white wine grapes.
Yum.
When communism swept through Hungary, it basically destroyed the wine industry because they wanted quantity, not quality. And so they were just cranking through these fields, and oh my gosh. Think of it like your hair, and if you just do updos all the time, you rip it out. Well, that's what they were doing to these grapes.
At Catherine.
Yes, Catherine.
I do a lot of updos.
And so those centuries of work that they put into these fields, it was just ruined. They also used iron to ferment the wine, not stainless steel. Which, yeah, it sounds disgusting to me, and I don't even want to imagine what that tastes like, because
Blood.
gross, yeah.
Like licking copper.
Yeah.
Right. Ew. But after the end of communism, they did put funding back into revitalizing these small family vineyards. And so a lot of these smaller vineyards they're babies. They're just like what we have here in North Texas.
Babies.
And the good babies. I mean, they still make really good wine.
Mm-hmm.
But our wine was not from Budapest because they're all babies. It is from Tokaj, which is spelled Tokaj. Sometimes there's an I on the end, which is the second largest wine region in Hungary. And it has rich volcanic soil that grows white wine grapes really well.
Nice.
Especially the Furmint grape, which is what we are going to be drinking. Tokaj is about 230 kilometers from Budapest. And, I mean, it was literally the only Hungarian wine that I could find that was not $50 for a half bottle.
Sure. We are not on that kind of budget.
No. And I will actually talk about that style of wine here in a second because it's also from Tokaj. But Tokaj region is an UNESCO heritage site and the oldest classified wine region in the world. I had to restrain myself from going further into this in depth because I really wanted to nerd out.
That's cool.
So moving on to when we taste wines, we use the 5 S's. We look at the color, so sight. We look at it. We sniff it and see what aromas we get. We swirl. This is more important for red wines so that way they can open up a little bit and breathe, but you can still do it with white wines. You sniff again, and then you sip and savor. When you savor, you let that wine go all the way over your tongue. And,
Don't choke like me.
Please don't choke. I frequently do. So if I die a little bit later whenever we try our wine, don't judge, please. But we had 2 white wines from Tokaj here. Our first one was a Pinot Grigio that we've actually already finished. And we ate it with dinner. It was delicious. And so I took Brie on a little wine tasting experience before we did this. So can you tell them a little bit about what you experienced with our 5 S's?
So she had me do the sight thing like she said, and you have to put it against a neutral background. And then you look at the color, and with white wines you see if it's more yellow or goldish or greenish, and that'll tell you what kind of grape it comes or where it comes from.
It'll tell you just a little bit about the flavor profile that you're looking for.
What she said. She told me this already. And then she had me, I think we sniffed next. And I was supposed to smell things I didn't smell. Like floral notes, I think she said.
And that's okay.
I'm a baby. I don't know things yet. And we couldn't swirl because our glass was real full, guys. So no swirling, but it was a white, so it's not as necessary as with reds, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, look, I'm paying attention. Yeah. And we sipped, and I'm supposed to let it run over my tongue so it gets all the taste profile
and
area
then you
things.
Choked.
And then I choked. I tasted green apples. I tasted apples. And I savored later, and then I choked some more.
And then you tasted?
Melon!
Yes.
I tasted the melon.
So sometimes when you try it, it takes a little bit for either you to eat something, which we had our lovely meal that Catherine prepared, and we'll talk about later, to sometimes pull out some of those extra notes. We're not going to talk about pairings today. We'll talk about it another time. However, the wine that we're going to try here is the Furmint by Meyer. I was not familiar with Furmint before this, so I got to do some research. Thankfully, I have a couple really good books on wine because I'm a nerd. Shout out to my brother and my husband who both got me books on wine that I use for this. Yeah. So Furmint is the most important grape in the Tokaj region, covering approximately 70% of the region.
Wow.
In fact, over 75% of the world Furmint grapes are grown in Hungary. So about 10,000 of the 13,000 acres worldwide.
Jeez.
So it is primarily in Hungary. So historically, this is made into a very sweet dessert wine called Tokaj Aju, which has a really cool fermentation style, but since we're not drinking it, I'm not going to cover it because it goes very in-depth.
Maybe one day.
One day I'll just get drunk and tell you about it. However, the Furmint that we're drinking today is in the drier style, which is going to resemble a Riesling.
Oh.
And even the drier styles carry significant sugar, so this has about 9 grams of residual sugar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a very sweet grape. So let's crack it open.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Ooh.
Here we go.
Nice crack. Shout out Wine
Shout
and Crime.
out Wine
I was
and
about
Crime.
to say.
We love our Wine and Crime.
We love you.
Also, check out.
Also, we want to be your friends.
Yep.
So
Come drink with us.
Come
I'll
drink
make you
with
food.
You can contact us at darksidetourguides@gmail.com.
That.
All right, so even as I'm pouring this, you can see that it's a little bit of a richer yellow, and it has slight green hints to it.
Sure does.
And so that just tells us a little bit about this flavor profile. So we look, we sniff. It's very earthy on the nose.
I have allergies, so I smell nothing, but I'm going to take your word for it.
Yeah, it has a little bit more earth to it. Do you smell anything, Brie?
I moved on to the sipping portion already.
So with just how our glasses are, we can't really swirl. So we're sipping.
Well, I agreed when you said it had earthy tones.
So this specific one
Trying to
lists apple, stone fruit.
Okay, so I tasted apricots.
We'll get there.
Bro, I am a sommelier. Allergies or no allergies.
Where was I? Oh, white flowers and minerals with vivid fruit, citrus, and floral notes on the palate. However, again, very dependent on the person. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of that acidity. And so that is something that you can expect with Furmint. Some other flavors that you can get is, I don't know what green is. I'm assuming it just means
chlorophyll flavor, like grassy.
I don't know. It just said green with spicy flavors.
That's not a flavor. That's a color.
It
but
is a
good
color.
try.
Yeah, but it does tend to be very acidic. You can also get pineapple, which I can see with this.
Yeah, because the acidic. Yeah.
Honeysuckle,
Okay.
lime peel,
Okay.
beeswax.
Bruh.
I've never tasted.
I have, because I use eco-friendly food wrappers.
Yes.
And they're covered in beeswax, and sometimes it's still on there, and you're like, ugh. But it's okay, because save the planet. Okay, continue.
Saline. Don't get that.
And then it's a little salty.
I get more of the citrusy with it.
Yeah, I get the citrus.
See, but salt and citrus go very close to my mind because of margaritas.
I was thinking tequila shots, but same thing.
Yep.
Lemon, green apple, ginger. I do get a little bit of ginger in this. Smoke and pepperoncini.
Okay. I get the stone fruits, I get the acid, and I get a little bit of that saltiness.
Yeah. And so it's quite pleasant.
Yeah.
I could see why this would be made into a sweet line.
Yeah. It goes down pretty smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Since we're now already halfway through the bottle.
It's okay.
There are three of us. It's fine.
Right, yeah. Okay, so going back to the Pinot Grigio that we drank earlier, it's made by It's Wine Time, which is a very American name, but it is made in Hungary in the Tokai region. I double checked on the bottle that it was.
That's cute.
Yeah, but they definitely made it for Americans. But Pinot Grigio, also called Pinot Gris, is very common. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because it is so common, and we'll probably end up covering it later. But we should have been tasting and smelling citrus fruits, sometimes peach or cantaloupe, almond, and sometimes has a gravelly essence to it.
Ooh, yes.
The
I like
Pinot?
yes, gravel. I
feel like a turkey or a chicken or something.
Yeah, you gotta pick.
Yeah. But it's usually a really nice crisp wine that
it's very
good
refreshing.
poolside, refreshing. Yeah.
And it doesn't linger on your palate, which
Yeah.
is nice because I immediately forget what it tastes like, so that means I have to keep drinking it to remember what it tastes like.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's our Hungarian wines.
And now, made this joke last week, I'm gonna make it again. I hope you're hungry. So today I made a traditional Hungarian goulash. So goulash has been around since medieval Hungary, and it is a hearty meal. It has potatoes, carrots, bell peppers, garlic, onion, and beef in our version that we made, and it is flavored with just a lot of paprika, which is the national spice of Hungary. It's super filling and warming, and it's delicious, and we served it with bread and some sour cream, which is a pretty traditional way to eat it. So apparently goulash is all over Hungary. There's brothier versions that are more like a soup. Ours is more like a stew. And it's kind of like very slightly by region, very slightly by what people have, very slightly by whose grandma claims that they made it the best. It's that kind of a dish. So there's tons of different recipes, but the most important thing to note, it is very different than an American goulash, which is like some weird casserole thing. It's like ground beef and a can of tomatoes over noodles.
Ew.
It's not near as delicious and flavorful as this was. So what were your thoughts about the goulash?
Well, I already told you that I usually hate goulash, and this was amazing. And then we talked about the American goulash tasting like puke. So, but no, this definitely was hearty, and I was 100% sweating when I was eating it. But as a northern girl, this would definitely be real good in the winter.
Yeah.
So fall is my favorite.
Yes.
Just cozy sweaters, and I really want just like a nice bowl of goulash and some wine next to me as I sit next to a fire and warm up after our hot Texas winters.
Yeah. It's pretty good, and it gets like a really pretty red color from the paprika and from the tomato, so it's delicious.
It was so good.
It was really good.
Yeah, and I seared my meat on the stove and put it in my crock pot and then left. So it's pretty easy.
The meat was good too.
And it's really
I was so
inexpensive.
happy about
It's
that.
like a super inexpensive meal.
Because it's peasant food.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yay to being peasants.
Yep, make you some goulash. So, yeah, that is about goulash.
Okay, so since we're doing Budapest, or as y'all say it, Budapest, I don't know what's right, but whatever, I'm a little tipsy. It is the capital of Hungary, and it was created by the merger of three cities, Buda, Óbuda, and Pest, which just cracks me up for some reason.
They're logical folk.
I mean, you did it. You just, okay.
Yeah. You merge together, you just merge names.
Geniuses.
And I don't even know if I pronounced Óbuda right, because there's an accent on there, and we've learned how I do with accents. But anyway, and it's along the Danube River.
Danube.
That.
You're a Danube.
As soon as I said it, I was like, nope, I just read that. That wasn't right. So it was created, the city itself was created in 1873, but it goes all the way back to like 89 AD with a Roman town, but that was when it was still split up into the three, and I think it was Óbuda that actually dates back to them. But it even predates that originally. It was built by Celts prior to the Roman occupation.
Both of my people, the Celts and the Romans.
You're right.
It's my folk.
That's more folk.
Stay tuned for more of Catherine's family history time.
So the traces of the sediments all the way back to the Stone Age, and in 896, 7 Magyar chieftains came together. Oh, by the way, Magyars are Hungarians.
Okay.
Oh, yeah! It says Magyar, close enough.
Magyar.
It says that.
I listened to Google Translate literally 80 times to get Magyar.
Okay.
Wait till you hear me with my names. I'm gonna rock it.
Oh, yeah. So, they all came together to defeat the Romans and take back their land. I did air quotes there. We will get to that story. From about the early 16th century until about the 18th century, it was split under the rule of the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburg Empire. And then about early 1700s, the Habsburgs invaded Transylvania and they took control. I know.
Transylvania.
Transsexual.
Well, and also Hotel
Transylvania.
Transylvania. My cat's name is Mavis.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So shout out to my girl.
Yeah. So they took... I'm losing my place. They took control of the Ottoman territories and they brought Hungary completely under the Habsburg Empire until this 1867 when the monarchy was reborn into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. During World War I, the empire was one of the Central Powers. If you didn't know they lost, they did. The Allied forces bombed Budapest majorly, and they suffered lots of significant damage. The empire actually fell following the war, and then Hungary turned into an independent state. In 1956, by the way, we moved to the 20th century, if I didn't mention that. There was an anti-Soviet, anti-communist rebellion, and the prime minister at the time was actually put to death, and then they squashed the rebellion. And toward the end of 89, it became the Republic of Hungary. It joined NATO and the European Union. All right, so religion. Prior to embracing Christianity, the Magyars were considered pagans. It was a polytheistic religion consisting of sacred creatures and gods with human forms. And they believed in the whole tree of life, with the top layer being like gods, the middle being like kind of like demigods and humans and stuff, and then obviously the bottom layer was hell. And so when I mentioned earlier how they talked about reclaiming their lands, this comes from the legend of the White Stag, and there was this hunter king.
Harry Potter? Expecto Patronum!
That, exactly. That's where they got this. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe.
Your face.
I was so excited.
I know.
You can't say anything about Harry Potter that's not true to me.
I don't know if I mentioned it this episode again, or maybe it's next episode.
I love Harry Potter.
There's more Harry Potter to come, guys. There's
Oh.
always more Harry Potter.
I will find a way.
We get some Latin next episode. Be excited.
Oh, no. That's definitely where I brought in my Harry Potter. I know it's in there. Okay, so the Legend of the White Stag, there was this hunter king named Nimrod, and that's a great name. Like,
Nimrod, the mighty hunter. Thank you, Benjamin Britten.
He had twin sons. They're always freaking twins, man. They were Magor and Hunor. I don't know. They saw a white stag while they were hunting near the Caspian Sea, and so they followed it until they got lost, and then they just took a break on an island and saw some pretty chicks, and they're like, yo, you might be fairies, I'm gonna marry some of you.
And they were like, okay.
So they took two of the apparently fairy females as their brides.
Only two?
Yep, only two.
So only one for each?
Yeah, they weren't selfish.
Oh.
I know, right? Impressive.
Wow!
Impressed.
Right? I'm saying.
Fascinating.
That was not a comment on men being selfish, freaking nasty creatures. Anyway. So it said that from Hunor's offspring came the Huns. The Huns.
The Hungs?
I know. I was hoping you wouldn't notice.
Hunor's hung.
See, the G was just silent. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So like Attila the Hun, yes. And then from the Magyars, which is, like I said, what Hungarians call themselves in the country, the Huns are said to have continued to follow the stag to the promised land, while the Magyars kind of just hung out for a while until they finally hung to the promised land. Headed to the promised land.
Wait, what's on your mind?
Always. So that was a while later, though. They're a little slow on the uptake, like me, apparently. So they used that to justify the Magyars conquering the Carpathian Basin.
Okay.
And if that legend's to be believed, it was technically theirs by ancestral right.
Okay.
Okay, so now here's the fun stuff. I swear this isn't actually a ghost, so I'm not stepping on your toes. It's called a chicken spooklight, right? It's like a will-o'-the-wisp.
What's it called?
A chicken spooklight.
That is so me, though.
If I get chickens, I'm going to name one of them Spooklight.
Well, and you know me and my love for chickens.
Yeah, Carrie loves chickens.
Oh my gosh.
I have chickens. My dad has chickens. We have two. They're super stupid, and we call them Dumb and Dumber, and they're real dumb, but they're our favorites, and they run into shit like full speed all the time, and it's fucking hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
They're so dumb.
Yeah, so speaking of local wineries, I'm just going to talk about local wineries all the time. That's going to be my thing, apparently. No, there's one close to us that has chickens, and my favorite thing to do while I'm there...
She literally broke into the chicken coop.
I break into the chicken coop, and I just go play with the chickens. Like,
She just picks one up, and they're like... and Jerry just holds them.
They're happy as a clam. And I just...
You'll have to come to my dad's property. We have so many freaking chickens. We have, like, laying chickens, and we have feed chickens, and we have some roosters and stuff.
Well, oddly enough, like, every other time I go see chickens, I match them. Like, there was one time I was wearing all black because I was painting stuff, and I had a red bow in my hair, and I saw a black rooster. And so, you know, he had the red comb.
Just wear black and white, and you'll match Dumb and Dumber, because they're all
They're
black.
silkies, aren't they?
I don't know. They're all black with the white feathers.
Yeah.
They're so dumb. I love them so much. But they're really good. They'll they're annoying in the mornings if you don't open up their
They wanted to party.
because they're like, bitch, let me out. But at night they'll put themselves away, and you just have to shut the door.
They said, bedtime.
Yeah. They're so
He
dumb.
sleeps.
It's great.
Oh.
And they stick together. It's super cute.
What a life.
Yeah. I got lost. Oh, chicken spook light. I got excited about the chickens. We also have ducks. And I named one. Was it Dick Van Duck or Duck Van Dyke?
It was Duck Van Dyke.
That. Yay! I named it Duck Van Dyke. I'm excited. Anyway. Chicken spook light, aka Ignis Fatuus or Earth Devil. I like Earth Devil. They were chicken ghosts that hatches out of an egg that is found accidentally. The chicken spook light, it's said to fulfill its master's desires but remain invisible to others. And they appear when the master spouse is either dead or not at home. So that's sad. And they're always the opposite gender of their master. So they're like weird little
It's like
chicken
a demon
lovers.
they're like demons from his Dark Materials trilogy.
But I also want like 14 of them.
This is my Okay, other sidebar. So I'm real weird, guys. When I was little,
Oh yeah.
I have an imaginary friend called Baby Chicky. Okay, and he's the only person I talk to. We were close knit, little invisible chicken, and you know I was a really weird kid. Like I had a lot of testing done. Okay, and my parents, ever supportive, got me the stuffed chicken. They're like, "Oh look, our sweet psycho little child will love this chicken." And I like looked at it when they gave it to me, and they're like, "Look, it's Baby Chicky." And I was like, Baby Chicky's blue. So, I enjoy invisible chickens. I had one of these growing up.
See, and I was in the era of the Spy Kids 2, where the guy had like his little miniature zoo, and I wanted to pretend that like I had a little miniature zoo in my little rolly backpack when I was in 5th grade. Yeah.
Nice.
And so, you know, I've always imagined little animals just like being invisible and being with me all the time. Like a freak.
Well, these weird ass little chickens hatched from under your armpit, so
I mean, I'm warm enough right now.
Baby Chicky, here he comes.
yeah. And they come from an egg of a black hen, and the master that hatches them has to live with them like they're a lover. And if the master wants to get rid of them, this is sad. They will have to assign them an impossible task, which will destroy the chicken.
It's like the Meeseeks.
It's so sad. They just want to please you.
Oh, it's exactly like the Meeseeks.
Hey. Well, they do live as lovers, so
That's
a little weird.
yeah.
My baby
she
Chicky.
started laughing. That's what I'm going on.
Baby Chicky and I were strictly platonic.
Thanks for clarifying,
Yeah.
6-year-old Catherine.
Yeah.
They said you were the friend of the devil if you had a chicken ghost.
Still continuing to be me.
Yeah,
That's
I
it. Actually, 6-year-old Catherine.
But like I said, they're kind of like will-o'-the-wisps, if I was understanding what they were saying correctly. But the flickering light seen from a distance is called fenfire or ghost light, and it said treasure is buried in the ground in that spot, which is why I thought they were will-o'-the-wisps, because
Ooh.
treasure, but
Treasure
also leading
and
you away
chickens?
from the treasure off to your death is a will.
Sure.
Sort
Yeah.
of, sometimes.
These chickens are just looking out. They said, "Hey, look,
I grant your wishes.
I got you some treasure for hatching me from your arm."
Thank you. That honestly, when I was like, hatched from your armpit, I'm like, that sounded like the plague, though, with like the weird sacs.
Or that
under
weird
your
project you do
armpits.
in middle school when you have to like keep an egg alive. You're just like, "Come here."
See, didn't have to do that.
Put him under your wing.
Well done.
Baby Chicky. Aw, I have so many thoughts of Baby Chicky now. that, Brie? Was that a snort?
No, piss off. I don't snort. I know not what you mean. Okay, next.
We'll replay the audio in a minute. See what happened.
Next, we have the Fair Lady. Fairies and demons, also
My
known,
fair lady,
also
the
known as
Rhine and Spain stays mainly on the plane.
Okay, I said in the plane. I don't know
It is.
why.
Yeah.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the
But
plane.
yeah, but when I said it, I don't know why I pictured an airplane because that's not what it is. Okay, anyway. So they're known as the White Lady or the Fancy Lady.
Oh!
Yeah, so I got excited because I watched Outlander, and she's called La Dame Blanche, French for the White
White
Lady.
Lady.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
'Cause she's a witch. No, she's not, but they say she
She's
is.
a witch!
She's a witch! Also, shout out to the Wine and Crime Girls. Not a witch!
Yep.
I love that one. Okay, they're like Voldemort.
be
Their
our
name
friend.
is a taboo. You missed it. I told you I had a Harry Potter reference.
Voldemort. Oh, Voldemort.
Ba-dum-bum-bum. Okay, their name is Taboo. They were young, beautiful women with long hair.
Oh.
Of course, whatever. Often in groups at abandoned places, dressed all in white. Obviously, the White Lady makes sense.
Sure.
They sing and bathe together, cause who doesn't? And
Yeah. That's normal.
they have dancing parties along with the side of the occasional seduction and kidnapping of men.
I mean,
So-
totally normal.
Me?
It's like a Thursday night for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I do. These lightweighties can... Those. The females can make people dance until they die,
Oh.
paralyze them, and make them mute. So, the original fairy lore, that's
Yeah. Sure.
what they do. And they can usually be seen at night or noon.
Noon. That's interesting.
They're the summer fae, that's why.
Yeah.
They're the Seelie court, not the unseelie.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Next we have, I'm probably saying this wrong, Taltos.
Sure.
They're the mediators between the world of the living and the dead, and they're born with an extra bone that has to be hidden. This is the weirdest shit. Like,
Like
it's
a tail?
so random. It didn't specify. I think it was like extra fingers sometimes, and just like it just made me think of the Princess Bride.
The six-fingered man.
Yes. So they have to hide it, and it said that not long after they were born, they could speak, but their parents had to hide that too. And if they could keep all these weirdnesses secret, then when they turned 7, ghosts would come to torture them, which, like, why would you want to keep the secret?
That's sad.
Yeah, and then they would get sick or, like, hide for 3 days, and then they would, quote, get raptured and go into a trance.
Aw.
Oh.
Yeah, and then when they come out of the trance, and it's always referring to them as a he. Like, it's always
Okay.
a male, yeah. They can talk and be able to see into the other world where they learn things and saw the dead, and they have a really tall trees that they would climb to the top of to predict weather. And they would help their community by, like, completing assignments through contact with the other world. And sometimes they fight other Taltos, usually over weather. I was like, okay, you gonna throw down over a storm cloud? All right. But they would, like, hide and take on the shape of a bull, and they would do that to get the best weather for their communities.
Aw.
That one was weird. I don't know.
He's like, I'm gonna be this cow over here so we have real nice weather. Just don't mind me.
Yup.
Okay.
So last time I told you you'd get to the necromancy, not necrophilia, necromancy.
Very different. Two
So-
very different things.
Necromancers, they had contact with the dead, and they weren't gender specific. And apparently, around the mid 1900s, there were a lot of them working all over the country. Most were Catholic women. I'm gonna leave that right there. I'm just gonna leave
It is
it.
me, guys. I am all of these things. I have a chicken. I was crazy when I was a small child. Catholic woman. I'm telling you. I am all of Hungarian folklore. It's me.
It's me.
All of Hungary. I've never even been there, but they're like, you know what? Baby chickie.
So the necromancer's job was kind of console everyone and help them move Move on.
Move on. Like the cow.
The bulls.
I know.
I was thinking,
Weather bulls.
wine isn't as good as last time. It's not working out for me. Both the living and the dead. And they're supposed to be able to predict things, especially with death, and see things people can't see. And then my last one is ensorceling. I don't know.
Snorkel.
Snorkeling.
And the evil eye. And it makes me think of, don't you want to see her whispering eye? Okay. Anyone could put the evil eye on someone.
Sure.
It could be cured with carbonized water.
Oh my god, I only drink sparkling water!
Then you're
So does
always
that.
being cured.
Perfect.
You
I
can never
need
have
it.
an evil eye on you.
That's good. Colin literally went through like 2 cases of bubbly this week.
He had an
Like
evil
the
eye.
sparkling
He
water
had to-
bubbly.
Buble.
Buble, yeah.
Like Michael Bublé.
Michael,
And there's
please, please contact us.
That too. What she said.
Want to be on the podcast?
We will adore you.
Oh, but we know he only thaws out for Christmas music. So,
Yeah.
Christmas episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Bublé, join us for Christmas, damn it. Okay.
I will sing carols with you.
You can pick any city you want to, Michael.
Yes.
We will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know.
Mm-hmm. We may drool a little bit, but it's fine. We have our own
But it's
drool
okay. I'm just
rags.
salivating because of the wine.
That's it. And the good food. So they would put 3 pieces of charcoal into a pot of water one at a time, and whoever's name was spoken as the charcoal sank when it was put into the water was the one who had supposedly cast the evil eye, which, like, how Salem witch trials is this? Like, oh yeah, you drowned, so you're not a witch, but if you didn't drown, then you're a witch. Like, do we see a problem here? You're gonna kill us regardless, you're stupid.
When I was in Belfast, they had a whole like witch exhibit, and I cried when I was in the exhibit. It's so sad. It was either like blatant sexism or people with disabilities for the most part, because we all know the real witches escaped.
Right.
So it was just mentally ill people or people with physical deformities, and they just all got murdered, and it's so sad.
Yeah, people suck.
I saw Goody Proctor with the devil. It was Catherine.
Okay. So they would cut a piece of their hair off and light it on fire and smoke the child with it. It was like saging a room, and that would like cure them.
with
No
their
more
hair.
evil eye.
Ew, it
smells
smells
like
so
burnt
bad.
hair.
So
Like,
bad.
ew.
Yep. Ew.
I meant, it's not the worst thing I've heard, though. It seems reasonable.
Oh, it's much better than most things.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people freaking suck and have
Seems pretty reasonable.
sick minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have enough hair. Sage a room with it. It's fine.
I have no hair. It's fine.
Yeah, Carrie, you don't have any hair to sage.
Just take some of mine. I got a lot to spare. It's okay.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Cool.
Cool.
Chicken.
I almost talked about Elizabeth Bathory because I love her and she's amazing, but she was a little further away, so I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also like deserves her whole episode. Just
Yeah. I did not do her because she is too far away from Budapest.
Yeah.
But maybe
But
one
she's
day.
got a great story, that crazy
She does
bitch.
have a
Oh
great
my
story, even though
gosh.
she is absolutely atrocious.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely atrocious.
She was also part of American Horror Story. They, like,
Yes.
the
yeah.
Coven season.
Yes.
I loved it.
All right. So we are going back to the Danube to the Buda Castle.
Smart ass.
So I've seen it, but I have not been inside of it because the tour we went on was obviously to go taste wine.
Priorities.
And, yes, not to see the old castle. Pause for wine. That's not us peeing, that is wine.
I always like
Being
that
bored.
sound, not gonna lie.
The,
I also like, well, the pop. The crack, too, but I really like the pop.
oh yeah. Popping champagne, like, that's
Oh,
me.
satisfying sound.
Yes.
I'm afraid of both.
You're like Brooke with the cinnamon roll container. She's like, Bonna, open it, I can't.
Okay. So, a quick history of the castle itself. Buda
I
Castle.
love castles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This one is a little sad.
Oh.
They're all
A lot of
sad
them are sad.
always.
Let's be real. We have a
There is a castle on a cloud.
Aw, baby
I like to go there
Cassette.
in my sleep.
okay. So, I mean, obviously we have a dark tour podcast.
That's us.
Yep.
Dark.
And entertaining.
My friends, when I told them, they're like, let me guess, there's death. And I was like, no, I mean,
Only a couple.
And it wasn't even the name. It was just like, oh, you're in a podcast, there's death in it.
That is true.
You're not wrong.
Yes.
And
All right.
delicious snacks.
And alcohol, because priorities.
Perfect.
Yep.
Buda Castle was originally built in the 13th century as a fortified complex for protection against the Tatar and Mongolian invasion.
So like a legit castle.
Yeah,
Okay.
like it was a legit fortification. And as the city grew, the castle became a stronghold for Hungary and expanded.
Mm-hmm.
During the 15th century, Buda was officially named the capital, and the fortified complex was remade into a palace of the Gothic style.
Ooh.
I love Gothic architecture.
Reach up. Reach all the way up to the sky. Gothic architecture.
And it was in this time that it experienced its golden age, where it was the center of political and social life. Unfortunately, this did not last long.
Sure.
Because Europe, and nothing lasts long because they're fighting over everything
Except
all the
for
time.
everything also lasts forever.
Yep.
Right.
that
What a
too.
conundrum.
Europe.
Yep. Not planned.
In 1526, Buda was conquered by the Turks, who plundered the capital and burned it.
There it goes.
Yeah, very
There it
European.
goes again.
You and your fire people, get it together, man.
So while the Turks were in power, the palace was a fortress on the outskirts of the Ottoman Empire, housing barracks and powder warehouses.
Like gun
Yes.
powder? Okay,
Like-
okay.
Never a good thing.
Like-
no.
Blow that bitch
Yeah.
up!
It's about to blow.
Yes.
Let's just put all the sparky stuff in one area and hope nothing catches on fire.
So smart, guys!
Ugh.
It actually doesn't.
A woman did not plan that. Just saying.
Because
Just saying.
over 150 years later, in 1686, the Hungarians combined with the forces of Lorraine and Bavaria took back the palace. But this was not a joyful time for them
Oh.
because plague.
Because plague.
And-
All over Europe.
Yeah.
All the time.
We have a weird understanding of the plague now.
Yeah.
Actually, like interestingly, I mean, we have obviously more modern looks on things,
Yeah.
and we have,
And technologies and
well, in our area, we have the technology and the comforts of being able to still work and go to school and things like that. But it's very interesting because our lives have been greatly impacted
Yep.
yeah.
now.
Obviously, we started a podcast, so
Yeah. Postpone the wedding, working from home.
postponed honeymoon.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. It's been
Sorry, medieval Europe
been
and
rough.
Europe with your
We-
plagues.
We sympathize.
I was
You
trying
have
to
one
convey
now,
that
too.
last week, but
Yeah.
I was a little too gone.
It's
It
okay.
happens.
We had our serious wine moment about the plague.
Yeah. And then they also had other natural disasters along with misfortunes. So it just was not a good time for them.
Sure.
And so it wasn't until the 18th century that they were able to reconstruct the castle and its surrounding buildings. But of course, this time it was in the Baroque style.
Ooh,
And as I
if
always
it's not
say,
it's
Rogue, don't fix it!
the most underrated Disney joke of all time. If it's not broke,
don't fix it.
and just laugh. I'm like, no.
Codsworth.
Anyone else's fault.
Our choir instructor, conductor guy.
Hey, I'm a choir director.
Yep, that. He always used to say that. I'm like, good one, Carl. Good one.
If it's not Baroque, don't fix it. You little misshapen pearl. Where was I? Okay, in 1749, when the construction was finally finished, the ruler of the time, King Charles IV, got into a pissing match with
always
the
the
Austrian
Charleses.
ruler. I know.
Wait. Male political leaders were in a pissing match?
I know. Crazy.
What? Unheard of.
I know. And you want to know what it was about?
What?
The size of their palace.
Perfect.
My palace is bigger than your
Spot on. They actually measured it, too.
Get me a ruler! I promise you! It's cold in here! It doesn't count!
Bitch, bye.
Prove it!
But yes, they kept one up each. I'm sorry, I can't talk while I'm laughing. Let me regain composure here. Yes, they kept one-upping each other with their palaces. So, obviously, it became very...
So close to palaces.
But their palaces became very grandiose at this point.
Of course.
However, during the Hungarian Revolution of 1849, a fire broke out.
Damn it.
And it took over... Or, insurgents took over Buda Castle.
Okay.
Yeah, so, fire, insurgents...
Not a good combo.
No. Another palace was built, and there was a... Oh, yeah. It just kind of, like, jumped from fire, insurgents, to... And then they rebuilt it. And it reopened in 1912.
Oh, okay. 1912, I feel like, was a heck of a year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We jumped straight into World War II. So, in World War II, that would be an Amber Alert.
Oh.
I know. So sad.
I hope you're okay, small person, wherever you are in this world with our Amber Alert.
Yeah. During World War II, the castle fell into ruins again due to fighting in the city. Thanks, Nazis.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them in a couple weeks. Not a couple weeks. Days. Cairo. We'll talk about them in Cairo.
Oh, okay.
And then it took decades for them to reconstruct the castle. The exterior was completed in 1966, and the interior was completed in 1980. That brings us to the caves underneath, aka the Buddha Labyrinth.
We're going here, right, though?
Labyrinths! I love a good labyrinth!
Okay, I do have a little question at the end, speaking of labyrinths. Anyway, so the caves first opened to the public in 1984, and since then there have been strange sightings and phenomena.
Phenomena.
You remind me of the babe.
The Buddha Labyrinth is a naturally formed tunnel system that spans directly underneath Buddha Castle.
So smart.
And over the years, it's had many uses, including storage. Some tools and artifacts suggest it was used all the way back in the ancient times. But obviously, storage doesn't give us ghosts.
You can never have enough closet space, though.
It's true.
Honestly, though.
But,
the shoes.
But in more recent times, it was used as a torture chamber, prison, dungeon, and wartime shelter.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, one really interesting fact that I found was there have been a lot of skeletons found.
Ooh.
And
They got lost and they died.
Well,
They got tortured and they died.
there are a couple different theories of how they came about. So they were founded in the 1930s, and they date them back to the 14th or 15th centuries.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So they've been chilling for a while.
So they have been chilling for a while.
Okay.
Chilling like a villain.
We don't know if they're villains, Bree.
They're not. They're sex workers, possibly.
Aww.
Poor sex workers.
I know.
Those fuckers. Nope. That was going to be extremely inappropriate. I'll leave it alone.
Okay,
Good girl.
continuing with my Turkish harem. So they believe that it was once a Turkish harem right outside the entrance to the cave. And they could have been thrown down during an invasion. So they were just killed there during the invasion. But another one...
Like coitus interruptus thrown down?
No. Like, they just killed them because they were close to a cave, so they threw them into the cave.
Douchebags.
Yeah.
I hate people.
Another theory is that the Pasha of Buddha would break up his harem women when he was bored with them.
Gross.
Break up?
Like,
Brick up.
Oh, whoa, okay. Yeah, you're an asshole and fucking men.
Yeah.
ugh.
Ah! This
But-
is why I don't date.
Yeah. In any case, it's believed that their spirits haunt the caves.
I would haunt those caves too. I'd be like, major F you. I'm gonna haunt you for the rest of my life and all your
Right.
children and children's children's and everybody else.
Right. Another famous
Unless
ghost...
you carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain.
Yes.
That's all I can think of.
only
The woodpecker sighs. Yeah.
If only the trees were as soft as the skies.
As the wolf waits below, hungry. How do I know the whole song? He cries to the moon.
If only.
Because you learned the song so that you were prepared if you ever had to carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain.
Just in case. I'm
Gotta be
ready.
prepared. Okay, so this one's going to take a while because it's kind of a two-parter.
Okay.
So there's a ghost called the Black Count. And so, and then
Count Chocula?
No.
I'm pretty sure that's Count Dracula. That's the Count from
The
Sesame
Count,
Street.
yes.
I'm talking about Count Chocula.
We're gonna get chocolate in there in a minute. Calm down. He can still have an accent, damn it! My Count Chocula always did.
Anywho, so in the 19th century, a ghost called the Black Count brought terror to the labyrinth.
Okay.
He apparently originated as an impoverished count in the 1800s who dealt with bandits and allowed them to hide out in the labyrinth in exchange for part of their treasure. So
Okay,
he
he's
gave
clever.
them. So
That's
he gave
respect.
Them,
I respect that.
Yeah.
There's not any solid proof of this. However, they believe that he might have some sort of connection with a beloved 15th century visitor to the labyrinth. So, all of this is very alleged. I had to do a lot of research. I was not anticipating having to do this much research on this.
Yeah, to work for it.
I did. And honestly, this is what took me so long with my notes for this, because all of my ghosty sources were like, oh yeah, this dude was totally there. And, you know, this thing here is like totally for him. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and looked at the person's actual research, and they don't actually say that they were ever in Buda.
Were they in Pest?
They just said Hungary.
Okay.
So they were in Hungary at some point, but we'll get there.
That covers a lot of area.
I know.
It's like an entire country.
Our mystery visitor is none other than the 15th century Vlad the Third, or more infamously, Vlad the Impaler, aka the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula.
But, like, why do they call him Vlad the Impaler?
Mina.
So he could have spent some time imprisoned here, and we'll get there. However, there are lots.
It's a ghost.
It's a chicken spook light.
It's a Mavis.
Mavis will get him. If it's a chicken spook light, she's on it. Mm-hmm. Good girl, maybe.
My blind dog's like, what? What happened?
Something? But yeah, my ghosty references say that his ghost resides within the labyrinth, but he also allegedly haunts Corvin Castle, which he was also imprisoned there too. So
He was a bad
He
dude.
travels.
he travels.
Bad
goes.
mamma jamma.
He's still doing the worst.
Right. And also a lot of this was word of mouth because the printing press wasn't invented until the 1460s and 70s.
Okay,
a lot of this
Carrie,
happened.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to assume that the ghost is not well documented. And that it's probably okay for you to use some hearsay on it.
I mean, his whereabouts are not well documented.
We're here for the stories. We don't
Right.
care about the facts, guys. Come on.
He's an apparition. He can
Not
go
like
wherever
I
he
got my
wants.
degree in history or
I
anything.
know. So I was thinking about this. We have 1 English degree, 2 history degrees, 3 fine arts degrees.
Wait, you got your degree in history too?
Uh-huh.
How did I not?
And
know
then 2
this?
education degrees.
Yeah.
So,
We have a lot of degrees between us.
Yeah, we're accomplished.
Woo!
I'm not doing shit.
We're smart people. Okay. So, in order to kind of backtrack this to where Vlad might be there, we need to get a little bit of context.
I'm going to need you to say Vlad. You
Oh,
say his name.
I got this. Vlad the Second, aka Daddy Vlad.
Yeah,
That was
Papa
for you.
Vlad.
thank you, Daddy.
Ew.
Hey, Daddy.
No.
It's okay.
Vlad.
Daddy Vlad dies.
Daddy
very
Vlad gonna
soon.
impale me too?
Ew! He tortured and murdered hundreds of people.
Not as
Daddy
Daddy.
didn't.
It was Vlad the Third. Get it right.
But still.
Get it tight.
That's why I said Daddy Vlad and not just Vlad the Second, because
Got
there's a lot of Vlads
There are
in
a
this story.
lot of Vlads.
Yeah.
Even in this story, there's 3 Vlads, so bear with me. So Vlad the Second is going to be Daddy Vlad. Anyway, he had a meeting with the Ottoman Sultan in 1442, where he
fucked up. Sorry.
where he brought his 2 sons, Vlad the Third, aka Vlad the Impaler, and Radu, which Radu doesn't really have a main part in this other than he is with.
Radu is insignificant.
Yeah.
He's the second son. Second
Yeah.
sons are infamously insignificant.
Wasn't
Right.
he the eldest?
No, they would
No.
have named Vlad. Vlad would be the eldest because
Yeah.
named after his father.
Right.
Sometimes they skip some if they're disappointing.
Fair.
I'm just
How do you tell a newborn that they're disappointing? They all look like potatoes anyways.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Here's a potato.
Anyway,
I'm sorry,
for
I'm sorry.
Flo. So they had this meeting. It turned out to be a trap. So
It's a trap!
so all three of them got captured.
Sure.
And Elizabeth Miller, who's a research historian and professor emeritus at Memorial University.
And a queen.
Oh, she's amazing. Like, badass level. But she was professor emeritus at the Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. And she has a book called Dracula, Sense and Nonsense.
Oh my god.
Which, love. Said,
I'm gonna buy that.
the Sultan held Vlad and his brother as hostages to ensure that their father, Vlad II, behaved himself in the ongoing war between Turkey and Hungary.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, yeah.
That's a political move. At the
Yeah, right.
time, I respect.
Right, and so the Ottomans basically raised Vlad and his brother. Mm-hmm. He taught them science, philosophy, and the arts, along with horsemanship and battle skills. And so a few years later, in 1447, so it was 5 years after they were captured, Vlad II was killed, and Vladislav, so Vladislav II, took over in his place.
Or the third?
Vladislav II.
Okay.
So different person
Different
came in
person.
and conquered.
Yeah.
That's why I
Got
said
it.
there's lots of Vlads. So
Yeah.
we had Daddy Vlad, he was
Sure.
killed by Vladislav. And then...
Wasn't he like a nobleman from Wallachia or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really glad that I took this out because I literally had all of the same things.
Yeah. Vlad the Impaler, before he impaled people, went to reclaim his father's throne, but Vladislav just wasn't there. And so there wasn't much of a fight until Vladislav returned a couple months later and took it back. It was like, nah.
Nah.
It's unknown where Vlad was between 1448 and 1456.
Just stewing in his own insanity, probs.
Yeah.
Stewing in it. Like goulash.
I don't know if he was insane yet. I think he was resentful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That much anger is gonna
Well, because when
turn your
he,
insides to goulash.
when he did resurface, that's when he became absolutely ruthless.
Yeah.
He ended up switching sides from the Ottomans to the Hungarians and impaled the Ottoman prisoners. Hence, Vlad the Impaler. So he went into hiding and then became a vicious murderer.
He became an impaler.
Yes. So then, in 1462, Vlad was exiled and imprisoned in Hungary, and I think that's whenever he may have been in the Buda Labyrinth, if he was there.
Okay.
In all my research about the ghosts and stuff, they believe his spirit is attached to the labyrinth, so it's quite possible.
Okay.
And
Or maybe he just was like, I'm gonna haunt the spookiest part I can find
Right.
of my entire country.
Because he's Vlad and the Impaler.
And then he
Right.
died, and he just like woke up in the labyrinth. He's like, "This'll do.
Mm-hmm.
There's also nice sconces. It'll be homey."
It'll be homey.
well, we're getting to his death. In 1476, Vlad had reclaimed his father's throne, but then was killed by the Ottomans when they swept through again. So he did not die.
Yep. You thought you won.
The biggest screw you ever. And so, yeah, he did not die in the labyrinth, but he may have left his mark in the torture chambers while he was down there.
Oh.
Because there are lots of evidences of...
How many torture chambers do you need?
Honestly,
I
though.
mean...
Gross.
Several.
The torturer would be like... I feel like you'd be overworked and underpaid. Just saying, guys.
Well, he did it himself a lot of times.
Yeah. And there are
He
lots...
liked it.
there's
Well,
It wasn't just
sorry, I wasn't talking about Vlad. I was talking about the other people in the labyrinth.
Right. But there are lots of implements of torture and iron bars found in the tunnels. And so it's very well documented that the prisoners were tortured there. So we're going to jump forward to modern times because those are all the ghosties that I have. So Vlad the Impaler could be haunting the labyrinth. We don't know.
I want to go see him.
Yes, let's go see Vladdy.
I'm down.
All right. So an odd incident happened in 2011. On July 29th, the police suddenly stormed, raided, and shut down the labyrinth indefinitely. And that's literally all the information that I could find.
That's weird.
What year?
2011. So 9 years ago.
Recently.
Yeah, recently.
Oh, I want all of the stories.
Yeah.
There's some speculation that there may have been some physical threat in the tunnels, like maybe a small burst or a small collapse.
Okay.
But others believe that maybe something darker happened deeper in the tunnels.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Can we go investigate?
Yes, please.
Yay!
Since then, the Buddha Labyrinth has been reopened to the public and is a very popular tourist attraction. There are historical displays of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula and their connection.
Sure.
And it also houses some themed exhibits, like some costumes from the Budapest Opera, which I was super salty.
fan.
Yeah. When I went, it was on a trip for my college graduation, which I graduated with a dual music degree. And so I picked places that centered around music.
Sure.
And every single opera house that we went to was closed, or I wasn't allowed to go to it because of the tour that we were on.
Oh.
I was pissed. And the one that was not closed for some reason and that I could actually get to was Vienna, and it happened to be on a Tuesday. You know what day they're just closed because they're closed on that day? Tuesday, yeah.
Aw.
So,
We'll just have to go back.
yes, I need to go back so I can revisit, because I went to Prague, which was under reconstruction,
Oh, yeah.
Nuremberg, which is where Hitler went to go see Wagner.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't allowed to go on it because I was on a Hitler tour, and they were like, no, opera's not important. And I'm just like, screw you, my degree's in opera.
You guys, my favorite story of Wagner is that he used to like hide in bushes and like jump out and just scream like Wagner, and I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
I aspire to be that level of crazy. Like,
Yeah,
what a way to
he
go,
was-
man!
He was insane.
But also to scream your own name.
He would just scream like his own name at people and like jump out of bushes.
You're
Iconic.
a narcissist.
Yeah, well,
Musicians.
Yeah. That's fair.
iconic composer. I guess he's allowed.
Yeah, I
I mean, you're allowed a little leeway. A little.
He did the ring cycle.
right. I mean,
He's allowed. He's got this.
there's a meme about putting your washer on the ring cycle, and it makes me giggle because the ending of the ring cycle is not pretty. Let's just say flames, lots of them. Very European. However, since then, a very large portion of the labyrinth has remained closed.
We're exploring that when we go.
Yeah, so we're gonna sneak past those barriers.
I've
and
done it before. It's fine.
Yeah. An
I'm on one of
interesting
those headlight things.
Yes, the little like GoPro.
We're minors. Not like underage people.
minors. But yeah, so a section of it has been turned into a bit of a challenge for visitors.
I like a challenge.
Allegedly, the space is pitch black,
Perfect.
and it's where a lot of paranormal occurrences happen.
Perfect.
Such as disembodied voices and screams.
Yes, I love disembodied things.
And you can see apparitions and maybe meet your doppelganger.
Doppelganger!
As a Gemini, I want to meet my doppelganger.
The world can't handle two of me.
Yeah.
Okay, but also, my final question for y'all. It's the Buddha Labyrinth.
Uh-huh.
And we know what the difference between a labyrinth and a maze is.
Yes.
A maze, you go through start to finish.
Uh-huh.
A labyrinth, there's something in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beastie.
None of my research said what was in the middle.
Of this one?
So,
Specifically?
what could you speculate was in the middle of the Buddha Labyrinth?
The original vampire hive.
Yeah.
It's
It's all of the vampire brides.
so my serial killer has
like,
to do
we
with
chilling,
vampires
y'all.
too.
Ooh!
Yeah. Guys, Stephanie Meyer about to drop that new Twilight book.
We like
And
our vampires, guys.
I'm like slightly ashamed, and part of me's like, screw it. I
Nope.
love it.
I'm
it's
so
so
excited.
fun.
Yep.
Team Edward.
Jacob!
Ew, Carrie, stop it.
I like
like
that
them
sexy
both.
werewolf bod.
No.
I like them both.
I'm a vampire girl through and through.
If
I
you
just
can
want something
sparkle
fuzzy to
and give
snuggle
me,
with.
if you can sparkle and give me washboard abs, I'm there, boo. I'm there.
Man.
Can we go to the midnight premiere?
Yes.
Please?
If there is one?
I will make us matching t-shirts and I'll
Yes!
put
Do you
on so
remember-
much eyeliner and maybe like a colored streak in my hair. I'm ready.
Do you remember
Let's
when
go.
we dressed up with the t-shirts for
Divergent. I'm in an area diet. Hello.
I'm Abnegation Shocker.
Well,
Boring.
because I'm like a Ravenclaw too.
I'm a fucking Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Why am I always the nice one, damn it?
It's okay. I'm marrying a Hufflepuff.
They're so
I married a
boring.
Hufflepuff.
See, Hufflepuffs are the winners.
We're the bedrock, but we're fucking boring.
I needed a Hufflepuff to balance
needed a
out my
puff.
Slytherin.
Yeah.
Well, I need a Slytherin to
Heyo!
balance off my...
I'm not that Slytherin, honey.
I'm talking about you, Carrie! I need an actual there.
my goodness. Disgusting.
We love it. We wouldn't be friends if you didn't, because you couldn't handle me. Remember those people, your parents' friends and like your boss and stuff, who were like, oh, that friend of yours, she's so profane and scary. Is she mean to you? Do you need help? Do you need us to save you?
Well, so
I'm that friend.
I made Brie a teacup that said bitch on it.
It said bitch jerk ass butt.
Bitch jerk ass butt from Supernatural, and
Yes.
people were concerned about my safety because
I
Brie
shared
had
it on
posted a
Instagram
picture and she
you.
tagged me in it. They're like, is she calling you a bitch? I was like, no, I made her that teacup for Christmas.
I don't remember what the other things were, but they were like, do you need help? Do you need saving from her? And I'm like, yes, I am the
I
devil.
was like, first of all, have you ever talked to me? I'm pretty sure I get all my own, but thanks for your concern, random people on Facebook.
I mean, Supernatural was like what I grew up on.
Yeah, I was like, there's literally, whatever, man. I
I'm so
don't know.
mean, though, guys. I'm so mean.
So scary.
So let's talk about someone who is actually rather mean.
Yeah. Please do.
So, for true crime this week, we are doing Bella Kish. So it can
Ooh.
Bella Kish, if you want to say it with a Hungarian accent. I listened to it on YouTube. So basically, I speak Hungarian now. So
That's how that works.
yeah. So he was born in 1877, and he moved to Cincota, which is now part of Budapest. So this was like kind of like a suburb at the time, but Budapest has since grown, and so it's actually in Budapest, and Budapest was by far the largest city, and it's actually where the police who were involved in this case were from, so that's important to note that it's his own little village, but it's right outside of Budapest. He was apparently very handsome at the time. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and like a ridiculously awesome mustache. Like hipster guys, cry your hearts out because it's impressive.
I want pictures.
Oh, I'll show you one.
No. So, guys, I'm going to put pictures on the blog. So send me all of the
He's
pictures.
got the stash. Let me tell you, Salvador Dali and this guy. Okay. So, he rented a house in Cincota and hired an elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Jakubek. After his wife, who was 15 years younger than him, found a boyfriend in Cincota, and they ran away to America together. That's not what happened. So he was this handsome man, and he said, "Oh, my wife left me," and everyone's like, "Poor dude." He was a tinsmith and a successful businessman. He was also an amateur astronomer, and seemed to be interested in the occult. But everyone, like his neighbors, liked him. They noted he always had well-dressed and beautiful women. I just got an email, even though
I was wondering what that
it's an email on my laptop, but the sound was off, so I'm a little concerned.
sounded a little dirgy, and I was like,
Ooh, spooky.
It fit in.
Noted he always had well-dressed and beautiful women with him. So, he was handsome, he was pretty young, he was successful, and he always had these, like, lovely Hungarian widowers.
Oh, they're always
Widows.
Okay.
They're always
He's a
Widowers, widows.
widow.
like, wait a minute, that changes things a bit.
You know, I'm not here to judge. So widows who seem to have some money.
Oh,
Oh, I like money.
So the quirk that his neighbors were like, that's a little weird, was that he was caught bringing a bunch of large metal drums.
to store his
Into
victims
his-
in. Oh my god, yay!
So he brought them into his house, and his neighbors were like, that's a lot of metal drums you got there, bud. And he's like, oh yeah, but I'm stockpiling fuel because what is now known as World War I. But he's like, war is about to break out, and so I'm buying a bunch of fuel to store because there's going to be a shortage and there's going to be rations. And his neighbors were like, okay. And they all thought he had illegal liquor. So they thought he was buying illegal alcohol at the time to, like, woo these young, wealthy ladies. So they were like, it's a little fishy, but we see you, okay?
That
You're a
involved-
playa, okay?
That of all things is how you woo the ladies.
Well, if it's illegal, yeah.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
would want some.
That's fair. You're right. You're right.
So he had all these metal drums. He said it was for fuel. Everyone thought it was a legal liqueur, and it was fine. There is quite a bit of irony in the fact that they thought it was illegal alcohol, because technically they're not wrong. Mm-hmm. So, Kish was drafted into the Austro-Hungary army for World War I and was sent to the front lines, leaving his home and contents in the hand of Mrs. Jacobek. So, Mrs. Jacobek is his housekeeper, and she's a pretty important character in his life. Bela Kish is a super popular Hungarian name, and the landlord may have thought he died in the front lines because they heard, like, oh, Bela Kish is dead. Mm-hmm. He was like, oops, gotta get in there. I want to make some more money. If he's not coming back, I want to rent out the house. Or 2, they wanted to steal the fuel that he had because there's shortages all over because of World War I. So either way, his landlord ended up getting into his house, and he went to the housekeeper and was like, hey, where are all those drums? And she's like, I don't know. They're like, yes, you do. And she's like, nope, you can't have them. And she protested, but eventually they got into the cellar, and they went down, and he, like, stabbed the top of one of the drums to be like, ooh, is this, like, diesel? Is this petrol? What's in here? Can we use this? And they smelled something icky.
It's always the smell.
Always. So, for another time, my fiance told me on our second date the time he found a body, and I fell in love with him instantly. So, maybe one day I'll have him come on here, because it's a really sad story, but still, he found a body, and apparently the smell stays with you.
Yep.
It is very iconic. He
does.
still talks about how he cannot ever forget it.
Yep.
So, they poked the top of this drum, that smell wafted out, and he was like, oops, above my pay grade. So, he said, nope, not going anymore. So, he called Budapest, and they sent down an inspector from Budapest. This was in 1916. Housekeeper is still pissed. She's like, nope, I don't know, I don't like this. I'm supposed to be taking care of the house, okay? So they opened the drum and found a strangled, pickled body of a woman with rope used to strangle her still around her neck. So they were in almost all nude, and some of them had some clothing still on them, but with rope still around their necks, and they're pickled in wood alcohol.
That's a whole new level of kinky.
Well, and so it preserved the body pretty well. Mm-hmm. And so her head was sticking out, so her head rotted, and the rest of her really didn't. But
so many nasty things could come from that.
So they were soldered in to drums filled with wood alcohol, which was used to pickle them. Okay. So pretty gross. Because the bodies were so well preserved, a lot of them had 2 puncture wounds on their neck, and they were drained of blood. Oh. So they don't think he drank the blood. They think he was trying to embalm them. Uh-huh. And there's back and forth of whether it was just a forensic countermeasure, like you can't find this body because, you know, they're embalmed in his cellar, or if it was actually something he, like, enjoyed doing as a serial killer. I think it's probably both. It may have started as a forensic countermeasure, and then he's like, I like doing this. So they called him the Vampire Chinkota because he would literally drain their blood before he put them in the pickling solution. So he's at war. They find all these bodies. They kept looking, and they found a couple of things. So each drum in the cellar contained a pickled woman, and they searched the ground, and they found 24 bodies, including his wife and her lover. And that's the only male victim. So he only did this to women, and we're going to talk about why he definitely, he had access to women, but he did pickle his wife and her lover. And even the bodies that were buried, some of them had been pickled and then taken out of the drums and buried. So they were all pickled in some way, even if they were not buried in the drums. Which is super, super, super icky. So they know for sure he murdered 24 people, but they think it may be more than that. And what he was doing is he would put ads in the newspaper in Budapest looking for a wife.
That was such a huge thing, too.
It was a thing.
It was because so these women, most of them are wealthy. Mm-hmm. Most of them that he targeted. Yeah. And you needed a husband to survive, unfortunately. Yeah. So even though one woman had a really successful dress shop, all her own money, self-made. And so what he would do is he would woo these women. He'd go into the city. He'd bring them gifts. He'd talk to them. He'd get them to put all of the assets in his name.
Dick.
and then he would kill them. And so there was a secret room in his house off his bedroom that the housekeeper, Mrs. Jekovic, wasn't allowed to go in. And so reluctantly, she eventually told the police, like, I'm not allowed in here. And so they went, and it was just like an office. And on the walls, it was poisoning books and books on strangulation. And in his desk were hundreds of letters and correspondence between him and other women.
Oh my gosh.
So he would literally get them to put all the money in his name, and then he'd murder them and pickle them. And these were like young, beautiful widows who were basically tricked. So he would go to Budapest and he would be like, oh, here's a gift. Like, oh, I don't have any family. Do you have any family nearby? And if they said they didn't, he would kill them.
Always lie.
Yeah.
Always lie.
Have someone near you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Crime Junkies. Stay weird, stay rude, stay alive.
Yeah. So he had a system down, and he was so handsome, and he was successful, right? So he was able to trick these women into killing them. So at least 24, they found all these drums and all these bodies on his property. He's at war. Okay. They did arrest his housekeeper.
That's not fair. She
was in his will with a significant amount of money. So I think homegirl probably was like, oh, that's a weird missing person. I wonder what happened. He's like, here's some money. And she's like, what person? I don't know. So I don't know, but if someone was murdering multiple women, I feel like she had to have known.
Yeah, but where's their proof?
The bodies in the basement. That she's like, don't look in there. Don't look in there.
I don't know what's down there. Wink, wink.
Don't go in the secret room that I know where it is. Don't do that. So, anyways, whether she was doing it to protect herself, whether she just didn't know, she was arrested. And they went to go. So, okay, here's a little shout out. So, Detective Chief Charles Nagy of Budapest was called to investigate, and he did the most for at this time where police work was not easy. So he called ahead and made sure no mail or telegraphs could get through to him on the front line, because he didn't want, there's so many bodies, he thought he may have had a partner, or he didn't want his housekeeper to send word and be like, look, they're on to you. So they have all this information on him. He's still at war. They call around, and they find out he's in the hospital on one of the front lines, okay? So he tells the people at the hospital, keep him there. I'm on my way. He's literally killed at least 24 people. Okay? And so the hospital is just treating him, acting like everything's okay. And because the detective chief stopped any communications going for them, they're trying to get to the hospital to arrest him for all these murders. Okay? He somehow figures it out. Bellicus somehow figured it out. He took a dead soldier's body, put it in his bed, and disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
So by the time the detective got there, it was just a corpse in his bed and he was gone. No one knows where he went. And so there's a lot of theories about where he went. So, to this day, he has never been apprehended. He's dead now, unless he's a vampire for realsies.
You never know.
But what that means is that he literally never paid for any of these crimes.
Oh my gosh.
And he used a dead soldier's body as a decoy.
Prick.
Yeah.
But also Bellicus plays a major role in all of vampire lore.
Yeah.
He's super important in vampire lore. He's also really important in a lot of pop culture references. There's a German horror movie that's based off of his story. There's 40 songs.
No, you said horror, not horror.
Horror. I'm from Pennsylvania. Leave me alone. Okay. So he left. And people have had tons of sightings of him since this happened. So people thought he went back to the front lines, took a soldier's identity off of a corpse, which honestly, World War I was super easy to do.
Yeah.
Changed his identity, and eventually ended up in America, is what they think happened. So in 1932, homicide detective Henry Oswald in New York City was certain he saw Kiss coming out of the Times Square subway in New York. So apparently Henry Oswald was known as the camera lens, because he had a perfect eidetic memory.
He's like Baby Ray.
Yeah! So what he would do is he would look at all the serial killers and criminals who hadn't been apprehended, and he would remember their face, and so he swears he saw him coming off the subway, and people put stock in him. The rest of the police force was no, this guy, this is his bit. He knows what's going on. So that was 1932, and apparently he was living in New York, and people think he was living in New York working as a janitor.
Interesting.
And there was rumors that he was all over the place, but nothing was ever verified, and he has since died
I
without
hope
ever
so.
being apprehended. So, at least 25 kills, exsanguinated and pickled his victims. We don't know if there was sexual assault done to the bodies, but even if it was just like a forensic countermeasure to not be caught for his money stealing, still, I feel like you have to enjoy pickling people to a certain extent to keep that up.
That's
So,
insane.
yeah.
It's really interesting because you mentioned that he was seen in America, because when you originally started telling this story, I was like, and him going after widows and stuff, I was like, this sounds like a story that I heard on one of my true crime podcasts about this American dude who would go after widows and, like, marry them and make them fall in love with him and steal all their money before, like, killing them and stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot. That's like a whole con bit. So there's like a whole con subculture.
But he like put stuff in the paper and stuff too. But yeah, that was a whole thing during that era. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially because you're communicating. So he used to go by the name Hoffman. That was like the name that he used.
I wonder if he's related to my friend.
Hoffman, which was like the name he would use to like lure widows, so he wasn't using his real name. But like he was likable enough that his neighbors, like, it's a small town.
He used catfishing.
Yeah.
So his neighbors knew who he was. His neighbors knew about the drums, and he was able to convince people. Like, even if they thought it was a little fishy, they just thought it was illegal alcohol. Like, no one suspected this man of luring and murdering 23 women. Young, healthy women. Yeah. And that's what people say. That's like the first thing people say is that he's so attractive, and that's how he was able to get these women. And he was successful. Like, he was doing all right on his own, but then he'd steal money from these women and use that money to lure other women. And so at least 24 people.
It's ironic because in history they were like, oh, if you are ugly in paintings and pictures and stuff, that means you're evil on the inside. But it's usually the pretty people who are fucking evil.
Because they can get away with it.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, you're pretty, you would never hurt anyone. You're the devil inside.
Yeah. And, like, it's funny because, like, he was drafted in the war and he, like, went and fought. Like, he probably would never have been caught if they hadn't wanted to get into that cellar. And like I said, the lore varies on whether it was the landlord being like, I heard he died, I need to get this ready to release, or I heard he has a lot of, you know, stockpiles of supplies that we need, which also would make sense. But yeah, his landlord, but I love the fact that his landlord was like, nope. And like immediately was like, not dealing with it. So yeah, that's Bellicus. And he, kiss apparently means little in Hungarian. And so it was a super, super popular name. And I just love the fact that he's still never been caught. Like, I hate the fact that those families don't get
the justice.
But they were able to identify almost all the victims because they were preserved, so they could use facial recognition, which before DNA and before dental records, decayed bodies were like not matched unless they had something with. Well, so a lot of the women had like scraps of fabric that had their names on them because all the dresses were handmade, and so the dresses that were handmade had their names like embroidered in them. And 2 of the women they found had actually filed lawsuits against him. For being like, he said he'd marry me, I took him to court, and then they never showed up for their court appearance, so it was dropped. So, like, 2 of these women were fighting back when they were murdered.
Wow.
One of them's name was Catherine Varga, which is also his mother's maiden name, so I feel like there's just a lot of similar names in Hungary. But, anyways, super interesting. There's a German horror film. There's a ton of songs. Like, a lot of metal bands have songs called Bellicus. I guess because it's like in English, like Bella Kiss is super romantic sounding, like beautiful kiss.
But also like vampire lore, like they're metal. They're metal.
Yeah. And so he was called the vampire, but they have no evidence that he drank the blood of his victims. Yeah. I think it was probably more like less blood means less stink in my basement. But regardless,
blood freaking stinks fresh, but when it gets like old, it's
and coagulated.
And because he like literally soldered them in, and then if he took them out and buried them, they were still pickled. So like, but he's like living in this tiny town, and he had 24 bodies on his property.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. So he's a pretty prolific serial killer, and he got away with it for a long time.
Well,
his
shoot,
whole
he
life.
really, he really got away with it because he was never like they figured it was him, but they never like physically caught him.
And he was not educated. Like he read a ton, so he could kind of fit into that upper society, but he was never educated.
Clever little bastard.
So he just took his street smarts and read a lot of books, and then became an evil serial killer. He used his charm to lure women.
He used his
As one
power
does.
for evil, not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Bella Kiss.
Awesome. All right, Bree, you want to give us our social medias?
Yeah. So, guys, follow us on our blog at darksidetourguide.wordpress.com, at Insta at darksidetourguides, and you can email us at darksidetourguides@gmail.com.
We hope you enjoyed our dark tour of Budapest.
Vision Tatasra!
We tried, people who speak Hungarian.
I'm sorry, Hungary. We're so sorry.
Bye.
Bye.